1 2 1 2. Welcome to Beacon of Speech. Blah blah blah. That's Ted. I'm Fred. I am pissed off today. Okay.
Say it isn't so.
Here. What does this say on my outline right here? There is no hope.
Wow.
Doesn't that bode well for our talking today?
That's pretty extreme.
Yeah. Where do you want to? Do you want to start with me? Do you want to start with Beacon of Speech? Do you want to start with the United States of America? You want to start with the crappy Cleveland Browns? There is no hope. Okay. One of my favorite. I think it's an album by Slipknot. They sing about that there is no hope, and they said, yeah, America's a glimmering cesspool of depravity and despair.
I've kind of been feeling that way lately.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. So, last week, me and you were supposed to do Beacon of Speech. We did not do Beacon of Speech. Because, see my magical Coke can? My magical Coke can that I drink from because I have throat problems? I'm not drinking any Coke today. Okay? Because I had kidney stones. Alright? Now, everybody gets kidney stones. I had kidney stones. Everybody that works, like my aunt had kidney stones. My husband had kidney stones. Everybody has kidney stones. Right?
So are you through that now?
Yeah, I'm done. But...
Well, did it come out? Or?
Well, yeah, a little piece of sand came out, like, tiny. And it made me feel like a big wuss. Okay? Because it was so tiny that I'm like, I can't believe that almost knocked me out.
Yeah.
Right? But I was at my magical new job, which we are not going to name what the new job is. I had to leave work. I left work, punched out, went to the emergency room, right? While I was at the emergency room, somebody had to take over for my shift. It is a guy who used to be in the military, okay? Old military man. He took me aside when I got back from my kidney stone, right? And he said, I did a post-trip inspection and your vehicle would not have passed a post-trip inspection.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And I said, oh.
So this is because of something you didn't do, or?
Yeah, because the vehicle was not cleaned at the end of my shift.
By you?
By me.
So you're in charge of cleaning your vehicle at the end of the shift?
at the end of the shift.
So does that mean picking up, like, anything
Any debris or anything, yeah. So.
That the kids might leave? Or?
Yeah. So I was in trouble for going to the emergency room and not doing my post-trip inspection. Okay? That guy can suck an egg. Okay? And that's an analogy for everything for Beacon of Speech. Okay? Ted, I tell you all the time, I try to say, hey, check out Beacon of Speech, check out my blog, check out the video, check out this. Even if somebody said, Beacon of Speech sucks, it is the worst show I've ever seen, I would never want to see Fred and Ted again. People don't even look to say that we suck. It is like, Beacon of Speech, never heard of it, garbage.
Yeah.
Right? So, I'm mad at work. I'm mad here. I'm mad at the Browns. The Browns, last week, right? They said, Josh Gordon, we welcome you back with open arms. Come on back. You're the greatest guy in the world. Do you know how many drugs Josh Gordon did? I got the impression he was doing Motley Crue level of drugs. And for the last 5 years, all we've heard about is inconsistent urine samples, right? Inconsistent urine samples, secondhand smoke. Oh, I wasn't doing drugs. I must have been in a room where they were doing drugs, right? It was just all lies and lies and lies, right?
So they made it sound like, oh, he may or he may not have a problem.
Right.
Like, it's inconclusive.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're researching, right? But because he's an elite level talent, he gets chance after chance after chance after chance. Browns cut anybody, right? They don't like the way Bernie Kosar slurs his words on the broadcast. They're like, you're fired. He's like, but all I do is the preseason games. And they're like, you're still fired. They fire or cut everybody except for the guy who's done more drugs than probably everybody in the whole building combined. Because he's an elite talent, they keep him. Their last 22 games, the Browns are 1-21. And the reason I'm yelling about that now is Ted asked if I was going to watch a game, and I told him no. I said, we're going to start early because if the Browns just lose, it'll be a victory. I said the Browns are going to get murdered. And it was 33-3 when I pulled down your street. Now it's 33-10, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to run your business. You want to run your business of the Cleveland Browns straight into the ground because you're a retard. You're an idiot. I'm not supposed to say the word retard. You're an idiot, and you don't want to run your football team like a football team. You're like, I think I want to run an analytics department, and we're going to redefine the wheel, right? Now, your job, which we know what it is, but we're not going to beat it into the ground, okay?
So it's basically metrics.
Metrics. Sabermetrics, analytics, whatever you want to
So
call
they're
it.
basically running a football team the way businesses are run.
Right. And they said they're the closest thing to running a football team like a business. Well, as you can see, they're running it right into the ground. Now they say, well, Bill Belichick runs the team like a business. No, he doesn't. Bill Belichick he finds football players, right? Works them to death. And then as soon as he thinks they're going to suck, he gets rid of them, right? And he's like, I'm not going to overpay anybody. But somehow the Browns are going to redefine the wheel and they don't know how to win. Because let me ask you about your business, okay? We're going to ask you about your business. You take a box. We're just going to make it as simple as possible. You take a box and you give it to the customer, right? That's as simple as can be, right? Do they make it much more complex than just one box to a customer?
Yes.
When I used to work at Taco Bell, your job is to make tacos. You take a taco, meat, lettuce, cheese, hand it to the customer. I said, I don't know how Taco Bell stays in business because it's like they're splitting the atom. It's like meat, lettuce, cheese. How hard is it? Well, no. Everything in America is turning into the Browns and sabermetrics.
Yeah.
Everything sucks. And the people who run them...
I thought it was just me.
Oh, no. No, after today, I feel like you. There is no hope, okay? Hollywood, right? They remake movies, they make sequels. How many original ideas are there in Hollywood?
I was just talking to somebody about that like maybe a month ago.
Yeah. And the guys running Hollywood, they're not the smartest guy. They're not the smartest guys in the room. They're not the best human beings, right? That Harvey Weinstein, he might be the biggest scumbag there is.
You know what's a perfect example is TV. It's like they're bringing back Will and Grace.
Yep.
It's like...
Will and Grace was horrible.
Yeah. They can't... Why not bring back a good show?
Yeah. Well, Ted, Will and Grace was a good show. Again, for some reason, it's like people don't think. Everybody's like...
I mean, you shouldn't have to bring back any show. You should be able to come up with enough ideas.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're going to bring something back, at least bring something back that was great.
Yeah. And that's why, I've been watching a show called The Orville. Are you familiar with The Orville?
Is that, what's his name?
Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't watched it, but I've seen the commercials.
That's his new space show, right? His new space show is supposed to be in the spirit of the original Star Trek. But instead of like PG-rated humor with hot girls in it, the Orville is more cutting-edge humor with more swearing, right? And I kind of like the Orville. It's starting to grow on me. But they're not redefining the wheel. Basically, they said, we're going to do Star Trek, and we're going to put adult jokes in it. Granted, Seth MacFarlane is a smart guy, and he took an old formula and did something a little new with it, right? But let me use the simplest analogy that I could come up with when I was doing the outline today. Star Wars. You watched Star Wars in 1977. In 1977, I watched Star Wars when I was 8, and I thought it was the greatest movie ever. Ever. It was my favorite movie until I was an adult. I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Right? Now, they made the second one, and I'm like, that's awesome, but not quite as awesome. Right?
What is that, The Empire Strikes Back?
Empire Strikes Back. And then they did Return of the Jedi, and I'm like, that was great. Well, time to keep moving with life. Right?
I'm going to have to watch those, because... I believe it or not, I've never seen, at least as far as I can remember, I don't think I've seen The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. And Star Wars I saw in 1977.
Yeah. Well, here's the point. So they made the fourth Star Wars, which was the first one, right? They went back because there's $1 billion to be made. Horrible. They made the fifth one. That was horrible. They made the sixth one. That was just flat. That was just bad. It wasn't horrible, right? And then Star Wars 7, the one that just came out, it was good, but not great. There was like no magic. It was like they proved that they could make good movies again, but I felt like they were like suckering people out of money. And I watched the latest Star Wars called Rogue One, okay? And Rogue One was supposedly an original story, right? It was a story of the group of bandits and deplorables who stole the plans of the Death Star, right? They're the ones who this movie is supposed to set up the original Star Wars, right? But of course they made it 40 years later because there's $1 billion to be made. It was a good movie. I probably like Rogue One better than anything since Return of the Jedi, right? But the problem is, in Rogue One, every one of the people, they're like, under the Empire, there is no hope. And I know I'm going to die, but at least I'll have hope. At the end, excuse the spoilers, but at the end of Rogue One, everybody dies. Everybody in the whole movie dies, okay? Except for the people you know who come back in Star Wars, right? And
under the Empire, there is no hope.
Under the Empire, there is no hope. Okay? That's why I wore the Evil Empire shirt. This is from my movie. Okay? And I'm getting to the point where I look at the news and I'm like, there's no hope. Okay? Now, you like Trump. Okay? And we talked about him last week in a speech. Trump said he wanted 10 times as many nuclear weapons as we had. Right? Now, do you think that he was being serious, or do you think he was using hyperbole saying...
I think he was using hyperbole, but I didn't hear him say that.
Well, he never said it. Supposedly, he said it in a staff meeting, and then it leaked out. But, once he said it, I read 3 different stories, and me and you talked about this part on the phone, okay? When Trump went against Hillary, I thought Hillary was horrible, and I thought Trump was horrible. That's why I voted for Gary Johnson. You thought Hillary was horrible, and you thought there was hope under Donald Trump because he was different than most politicians. Mm-hmm. Now, I did not see hope with Donald Trump because when I saw Donald Trump, I saw a scumbag who killed the USFL. Okay? And we could go into, they closed the Trump casino. Do you know what an idiot you have to be to get your casino closed? Okay? So I did not see hope. But there was only 2 candidates. Hillary Clinton was not the candidate of hope. Okay? And everything Barack Obama did was hope. Okay? Oh, we hope for the future. Well, guess what? You got snookered. Okay? Would you say that's fair?
When you say you, do you mean us or him?
You. Yeah. When Obama said you have hope, did you have hope under Obama?
No.
Yeah. So at Rogue One, everybody's dead. Right? And they're like, well, there's hope for tomorrow. Yeah, maybe for the next generation, but not for this one. They're all dead. They're all gone. They're all in the smashed up planet. Right? And that's how I feel today, because once Donald Trump said, I want 10 times as many nuclear weapons, I read 3 articles about can we use the 25th Amendment to repeal Trump. Now, we're going to open this up a little bit, because we talk about the First and Second Amendment almost every episode, right? I, Mr. First Amendment guy, did not know what the 25th Amendment was, okay? You kind of knew what the 25th Amendment was. You just weren't sure whether it was the 25th or the 23rd or 20th.
Yeah.
Right. So you were actually better on this when we talked about it on the phone, okay? What the 25th Amendment says, in case the president is crazy or incompetent or incapacitated, there is a process to repeal the president, not through the use of the people, but through the use of government, or through the process of the president's cabinet. Okay? Now, the reason the whole 25th Amendment
So in other words, the president's cabinet can come together and basically convince everybody this guy's...
Right. And the reason it came to be, and me and you are going to talk about this, is JFK was shot and killed in 1963, right? And you can argue whether there was 1, 2, 3 gunmen. It doesn't matter, okay? got shot in the head, brains splattered all over, and his wife's trying to shove his brains back in his head. Oh, it'll be fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the question being, even when I was a kid, right? What would have happened if Kennedy lived, but he was on a machine?
Yeah.
There's no apparatus for what happens is if your president's in a coma, right? Well, technically, he's still the president. There's no apparatus to remove him. And that was in 1963. So in 1967, they passed the 25th Amendment, and basically it said if he's crazy, incapacitated, blah, 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 right? But how many times have they had to use the 25th Amendment?
I don't think they ever had.
One time. And I didn't write it down, but it was George Bush Sr. had to have surgery, and whatever surgery they had, they said 5% of the people don't come out of it. And so what he did is George Bush went on TV and he said, I am leaving. Who's Bush's vice president?
Quayle.
Quayle. I'm leaving Quayle in charge. I'm going to have this surgery. I kept wanting to say Cheney, but that was Bush Jr.
Yeah, it was the father, right?
Yeah. And he said, Quayle's in charge for 48 hours. Okay? 48 hours. And I do remember stuff saying, oh my God, what if Quayle, screws things up in 48 hours? Bush came through with flying colors because he had the best medical team in the world. He didn't get, what's this hospital by your house?
Marymount?
Yeah, what do they call it? What's the nickname?
Murder Mount?
Murder Mount, yeah. He didn't have his surgery at Murder Mount because when you told me that, we used to service that customer there, and I always thought that was the funniest nickname. But so the 25th Amendment was only used, and then Quayle literally sat in a chair just to keep it warm. I don't think he signed anything. I don't think he did anything. I think it was like...
I sort of remember, that sort of sounds familiar, but I don't remember the details of that.
So, but Bush was fine, and Bush kept saying, going into the surgery, I'm fine, I just...
Do you remember what the surgery was for?
I read it, and I did not write it down, so I'm sorry. But so, now they're talking about taking the 25th Amendment, and now the whole nuclear thing, they're like, we're going to remove Trump. Now, again... If you remove Trump, now you're going down a slippery slope. Because what's crazy? What's not crazy? If the president, I'm not just saying Trump, I'm saying any president. What are we going to do about Iran? Okay, let's just say Iran, just to kick things out. Me and you are brainstorming. Okay, what are we going to do about Iran? Okay, you can start at one end of the spectrum and say we're going to do nothing. And we could do economic sanctions. We could repel their ambassador. Like it's a game, right? All the way down to we are going to nuke the crap out of Iran. Okay? Now, you have to be able to, in the country of free speech, you have to be able to exchange ideas. If Donald Trump said it as a joke, because I wasn't there, you weren't there, it wasn't reported in the media except for secondhand, right? If he was joking... me and you joke about stuff all the time on the air. Remember the episode where I said we should kill all the eagles? Right? I didn't mean it. I was teasing. I was using it for effect or whatever. If Donald Trump was saying, if we just had 100,000 nuclear weapons, Kim would give up. Ha ha ha. I'm among my friends.
See, the thing is now is that somebody listening to us who doesn't like us would not portray it as you were joking.
Right.
Because they just want to destroy you because they don't like you.
Right, and that's exactly where we're going. If you use the 25th Amendment to repeal Trump, it has to be real stuff. It can't be this fake make-believe, Donald Trump made a joke, and they're like, 25th Amendment, 25th Amendment!
Yeah.
It has to be real.
Yeah, everything he does now is portrayed as he's crazy,
right.
he's a racist, he's this.
He's crazy,
because they don't like him.
Donald Trump grew up in Russia, and then when he was 18, he's a secret guy. Once you go into that slippery slope area, you are in real trouble. And you can't... If it was one article, there's nuts everywhere. Ted could turn around and say, I'm nuts, okay? But I saw it from conservative and liberal sites saying the 25th Amendment is now in play with Donald Trump. And I'm like, why? I'm like, he literally has to be an agent of a foreign nation. And again, you did not elect a politician. You elected a businessman. Just like when you elected Eisenhower, you elected a military man. You see what I'm saying? And I remember them talking about Eisenhower saying, well, you know what, he's not a politician. He's a general.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he thinks, I'm a general. Just like the guy I work with, who's like, well, when I retired from the armed services, I was a corporal or whatever the hell he was, right? In his head, he still runs his little part of the world like he's still in the Army. Well, guess what? We're not in the Army. But there's no apparatus to get rid of him. Just like with Trump. Well, Ted's thinking you could try and get rid of him, but...
no, I'm thinking about somebody else I know who was in the Army.
We know people in the Army who we worked with, and they did not say... Don't get me wrong. In order to represent your country, you have to have a certain gene, right? The people that we worked with at our company when we were working together was the best and the brightest that the U.S. had to offer sent to our branch. We got the guys who the Army was trying to get rid of. Like, hey, you want to take early retirement? We'll give you the shiny nickel. Okay? So at work, there is no hope. Sports is supposed to be an escape. There is no hope for our sports team. I watch TV, and every time like I said, Hollywood. Now, like, just every story is Hollywood. They're like, he's been sexually harassing these women for 25 years. Well, then why'd you do anything about it? Well, he was strong and powerful. But I wrote an article this week. It's called The Story of Ray. I argue that there's a Ray. I'm not going to say his last name against my better judgment. I should. But there's a Ray in every company because that's how corporations are set up. Mm-hmm. Where the good people, like our friend Neil, who should be in charge, they get run over by scumbags who'll do anything to get ahead, to make a nickel. I used to say that Ray would sell his mom to Arab sheiks if he could make an extra couple of dollars for the branch. Well, I love my mom, but the Arab sheiks gave us some money. Yeah. And everywhere I go, I see the same thing. And I'm not seeing the good winning. And people are like, oh, well, you know what? Even if we got rid of Trump, there'd be Pence. I don't think Pence is a step up. I think if you get rid of Trump, you're in even more trouble.
No, I think Pence is a pretty classy guy. You know, I mean, I don't think you could find anything on him that's...
Oh, no, not where he's crazy, but he's a very conservative guy. Yeah. You know, my way or the highway, you know, we're going to shut all this down and blah, blah, blah.
But I don't think there's any skeletons in his closet.
Oh, no, not skeletons in his closet. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, and this is personal, so I didn't bring this up. You don't have to answer if you want to. But around the Ohio-West Virginia border, I had took my son to something called a Spartan racing event. Okay? And it was right at the Ohio River where Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio come together. Right? And that's Old Coal Mining Company. Mm-hmm. And not just south of Youngstown. It's one of the hardest hit areas of the opioid crisis. Right? So we're driving down there.
When was this?
Yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So I'm driving down there. We're going through, I think it's East Liverpool in Steubenville. Yeah. And some of those places look like East Cleveland. But instead of being East Cleveland, they're, you know, on the hill. You know what I mean? Burned out houses, abandoned houses, just...
Steubenville, is that where Dean Martin was from?
Where Dean Martin's from, exactly. And I went through here and I'm like, this used to be the breadbasket of America. And it looks horrible. Yeah. And I know that it's been ravaged. It got 20% unemployment in that area. And I'm just like, oh, this is horrible. If I lived here... Now, I'm not saying we live in Shangri-La, okay? I'm just saying that compared to that, I'm like, wow, we really don't live that bad of a life in suburban Cleveland. No. Compared to what they live out there. And I'm like going by and I'm like, you know, there's no burned out houses. right next door to your house or my house. We live in a lower middle class area, lower middle class area. And I'm like, how could you wake up every morning in East Liverpool? And now if you're listening from East Liverpool, they're like, there's nice parts. You didn't go to the nice parts. And I'm like, well, in my city, there's no part where there's like burned out sections of it. And we stopped at Dairy Queen, and there was a sign as you're leaving the Dairy Queen that says, if you see anything, please call the police. And it was a sign. It was like a real sign that they put up at the end of the street. And it was like the Opiate Crisis Management Center of, Mahoning County or whatever. I'm like, oh my Lord. And it seems like everywhere you go, where is the hope? America used to be built on hope, but what it is that a few people are winning, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are losing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And you wouldn't even feel so bad if most of the people who were winning were decent people, but a lot of times they're not.
My wife, she has an uncle. Greatest guy in the whole world, right? Good Christian. He'll work himself in the ground. He'll do anything, right? His company, he rose up through the company because they valued hard work and blah, blah, blah. But then he couldn't get past a certain level because everybody above him was related to the owner. None of them worked. They all delegated him down to the work. So he advanced as far as a hard worker could ever advance, right? But he basically worked himself into the ground. And then once they got bought by somebody, right? Everybody who was above them got big fat buyout checks. Yeah. And then when the new company came in, they're like, well, we heard you're a hard worker. You're going to have to work harder because that's our way. And he's like, oh my God. Right? I really thought he was telling the story. But that's the way America works. Everything, I use the slanted table analogy, and I specifically use it for college football. Okay? No matter who plays in college football, the table is slanted. Right? If you're Ohio State, the table's slanted in your favor. If you're Youngstown State, unless you're playing a Division III team or Division I AA, whatever they're calling it now, the table's slanted against you. There's no equality. They say there's equal opportunity, but then you run into the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. Well, anybody in America could become an actress. Okay, well, but the guy running it is a predator. And I've said this ever since maybe I was 22 years old. A good company has mechanisms to keep the good workers and to get rid of the bad workers. Okay? The company you work for now, do you get the impression that there's mechanisms to keep the good workers and get rid of the bad ones?
I'd rather not say.
But no, and so I keep seeing all these examples.
Just on the off chance that somebody is listening.
And I just want to keep like thinking in my personal life.
Just on the off chance that we get a third listener.
It seems like the good people don't get ahead. And everybody's like, well, Tom Hanks got ahead. Okay, there's an exception to every rule.
Well, another thing somebody said talking about Harvey Weinstein. Oh, well, you know what? He's from that old school where, that's how you treat women. It's like, that was never acceptable.
Right.
It's like, when was that acceptable?
Yeah.
That's their way of deflecting. Like, you know what? We're all guilty. No, we're not. He is.
Woody Allen came out just today and said, listen, Harvey Weinstein, you know what? I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to let you guess. What do you think Woody Allen said?
Leave him alone. He's a good guy. Or
he said that what Harvey Weinstein did was deplorable. But they live in a different world. Hollywood is a different world. And if you persecute Harvey Weinstein, then you're going to go on a witch hunt.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to go on a witch hunt to other people in Hollywood who have done the same thing. Oh, you mean like the guy who was raping 13-year-old girls, Polanski, or Woody Allen, who was having sex with his own, 15-year-old daughter? Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, let's not turn this into a witch hunt. No, but that's the whole point. You should have never had the power.
Yeah.
The good people, when you think of Hollywood executives, do you think of like good people? No, you think of scumbags and mercenaries. Well, that's how you get ahead. Well,
but I love that argument, though. He comes from a different time. It's
Yeah.
like, no time was that acceptable.
yeah. And the Harvey Weinstein example, I think he's 55. Is that about right?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea.
I think he's 55. Okay? Let's just say he
Yeah, that
is.
sounds about right.
You're going to be 50 next year, right?
Well, no, like a month from now.
Oh, a month. Oh, we'll have to have a special Beacon of Speech.
Mhm.
Do you remember when you used your power to have Hollywood actresses have sex with you in a motel room? Do you remember when that happened?
No.
Do you remember people of your generation doing that, Ted? Like your friends that you graduated from in high school?
No, they probably would have if they could have.
Well, yeah, but don't get me wrong. I probably would have done it if I could have, okay? But you can't turn around and say, well, it's a different time. You'd be like, no, there's consequences to your actions.
Yeah, I think what they probably mean is he comes from a time when everybody in Hollywood was doing that.
Yeah.
They make it sound like everybody in the world, like it was acceptable. It's like they're talking about their own little niche or whatever.
Yeah. And they're like, well, we don't want to turn this into a witch hunt. Well, maybe there should have been a mechanism in Hollywood to keep the good people, you know, like the actresses like Rose McGowan, because like I said, I thought she was a good actress, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then she dated Marilyn Manson. I'm like, she's crazy, okay? But that's because she dated Marilyn Manson. But you should have mechanisms, keep your good people, get rid of the bad people. Instead of promoting the bad people because they do whatever it takes to, you know, make your company, you know, we're going to lie, cheat, steal so our company gets ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And Harvey Weinstein, you know, I'm sure he's like, oh, well, you know, every man has his failings. And it's like, yeah, I don't think that's, you know. Because again, if me or you in our little niche of the world for our first jobs when we were 30, 35 years old, if we would have done what he did, we would be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
That's called rape. Well, he's rich and powerful. He has a better lawyer. Well, they said Rose McGowan got a 6-figure settlement not to go to the media, and they said he paid out 8 settlements. Okay? That means it at least started to go through the legal system. Okay? Now, 10 might have secrets, okay? But the only secret I have is I got in a car accident when I was 22, and I got sued by the guy I hit. So there's not any legal paper trail for me. And it was funny because that guy, he didn't sue. I gotta tell you a funny joke. Now that I'm older, right? I'm 22 years old and I got in a car accident, right? And they sued me. Okay, I said, "Oh my God, it's horrible. Did I paralyze the guy?" And they're like, "No." And I said, "Oh my God, did I injure him? Did he break his leg?" No. Well, why is he suing me for it? Well, because you hit him. Okay, well, I should be sued then because my insurance should pay for the damage to his car, right? And they're like, "Oh, no. You caused him anxiety. He drives for a living and now he has anxiety because you hit him." Okay? And he drives for a living, so he also is nervous that someone like you might still be out there to hit him again. Okay? And it gets better and better. Okay? He thinks you're a menace. Well, that one might be fair. Okay? If you watch Beacon of Speech,
He might have a point.
he might have a point. He thinks you're a menace,
He was
and
ahead
you
of
should.
his time.
Yeah, you're a menace, and you shouldn't be on the road. But this was the best one. Okay? Because of his anxiety, he was having sex with his wife less. So his wife was suing me for loss of services because her husband wasn't having sex with him as much since the accident. Not he wasn't physically able to.
Mm-hmm.
He was having stress about the accident. So, again, my insurance company, which I loved at the time, right? They took care of it. They said, "Fred, just get better. You know, don't worry about it. That's what the lawyers are there for, blah, blah, blah." Right? And they settled out of court. They ended up settling for the cost of the repairs, and then a settlement on top of that. But they never told me what it was. Because they said, Fred, you're just going to get more upset. Just from talking to you. You're going to be more upset if we talk about this. You see what I'm saying?
Wow, that sounds like they were pretty nice.
They were pretty nice. Yeah, they were an awesome company. I stayed with that insurance company until just 2 or 3 years ago. And the only reason we left was because they dropped us. My wife didn't pay the bill on time.
No, really?
And then they came back, and after we didn't pay the bill on time, they said, well, it was the third time you didn't pay the bill on time, or whatever it was. So we're just going to drop you. And I said, okay. And we went with another company, and I'm like, well, my wife didn't pay the bill on time, so I'm not like even mad. I'm just saying, if you drop us, have a nice time. There are cheaper insurance companies, but they were super nice. They were a super great insurance company. Should I name the company?
I at least would like to know off the air if you don't feel.
Here, I'll write it down. I'll write it. We're going to lean over. This is the company who I thought was a really good company. We used to go there.
Oh, I think I know who it is.
Because I liked them. Like I said, if I was sitting on a big pile of money, I would go back to them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a good company. They got the spokesman, who's the guy that gets in all the accidents and not chaos. I'm trying to think.
Kevin Smith?
No, forget it. It's Allstate. Allstate's a good company. I highly recommend them. The point is that there's no hope anywhere around. And they're like, oh, well, you know what, that's for you to find religion, and you'll find hope. Well, at our age, what hope is there? You know what I mean? Madonna came out and she said that there's ageism in the music industry, right? And I'm like thinking, number one, your new album, I guarantee you it sucked, okay? And you'd be like, well, Fred, how can you say that? Because Madonna is not any good, okay? I never thought she was all that great of a singer, okay? She was all about selling the sex package, okay? When I think of great singers with memorable lyrics, I do not think of Madonna, okay? I don't go home and pop my Madonna tape in the thing. And she goes, well, there's ageism in the music industry. Well, number one, there's always been ageism because old farts like us don't buy stuff.
Yeah.
And number two, it was like, if you're not selling sex, a lot of people aren't interested in Madonna. Like, she made her bed and now she's lying in it.
Yeah. Well, who did she say is perpetrating this?
Everybody.
Everybody.
Structurally, it's the music industry and motion picture image industry both, focus towards the young instead of the old. Well, yeah, because the young have the disposable income. The old people, they're paying rent or mortgages or whatever you want to call it.
So once again, it's us.
Yeah,
It's
us. We're the problem.
Not her. Not something she's doing.
Yeah. Oh, no, she's awesome. In her head, the greatest artist in the world is Madonna. She broke the boundaries and blah, blah, blah.
So if you don't like me, there's something wrong with you.
Right. And that seems to be the pervasive thing of people in charge, the famous people. With the Harvey Weinstein. I'm not a bad guy. I'm a sex addict. Oh, my God. Don't blame me.
So he's the victim.
He's the victim.
He's the victim of a sexual problem.
And going back to the Josh Gordon article that I wrote, Josh Gordon is the victim because the mean NFL won't let him play football. He wants to play football, but he has this addiction that doesn't let him play football. So he is, again, lashing out at the NFL. And I wouldn't be so mad about Josh Gordon. I wrote an article for Beacon of Speech. If he didn't flat out lie about everything, and he made a documentary to sell about him coming back. Now, and I'm being honest with you, Ted, okay? Because we're gonna.
Well, you do know he probably needs the money because he's not playing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a simple solution. Don't do drugs. They'll let you play football. Okay. But here, I need that pop right now. When we went to East Liverpool, okay, we stopped at a Dairy Queen, okay, and I got Dairy Queen, and it was excellent. It was very good, okay. But the girl who waited on me, and this is when I started to notice at the neighborhood we were looking in, okay, she had long, greasy hair, and she had you have to look at the eye. She had the dead look in her eyes. She was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take your order. And she was very quiet, and she was looking right through me like she was whacked out on heroin, right?
It's
she
really
took
not funny.
and then she took my money, and I know I don't have good grooming. Let me see if I can get the camera angle. Okay, but see, I have fingernails. You see those fingernails? She had chewed all her fingernails off. She didn't have fingernails. They were like down to the stubs.
Yeah.
Right? And then I noticed, even though it was warm, she's got a long sleeve shirt on, and she was like all bony and skin and bones.
Mm-hmm.
And when she gave me my money back, I'm like, this is what not you, okay? But I'm thinking of her, I'm like, this is what I think a heroin addict looks like. I mean, in my head, this is it.
This was in East Liverpool?
This was in East Liverpool. And again, you know, maybe she has bad genetics, but I'm looking at her, and I'm like, where is your hope?
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. But the point of my story...
It is.
But the point of my story is that I'm looking at her, and I'm like thinking, I know you're doing heroin, right? I know it. I know it. If you saw her, you would know it too, okay? Josh Gordon, okay? And I'm going to use you as an example, okay? If you did so many drugs that you couldn't get a job, you were suspended from your job, you were suspended from your profession, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any license that you could get, you could not get, right? Would you make a documentary about yourself, about how you have to work hard to get back into your profession? Would you want to go on the air and say, I did a boatload of drugs? Wouldn't you have some humility?
If somebody paid me enough for the documentary.
But that's the point. That's the whole point, Ted. You just made the whole point. Where is the shame? It's like the people who have no shame, and the name that comes up is the Kardashians.
Mm-hmm.
The people who have no shame, they get ahead. The people who, you know, the girl, and I'm sorry I said the word Dairy Queen. Hopefully they don't sue us. They probably will. The one thing I say, I get sued by Dairy Queen. Okay? But this girl, her job was, her goal in life was probably not to work at Dairy Queen. Okay? I'm guessing that she probably lived in one of the houses on the hill right across the street from Dairy Queen.
Well,
it looked like it was a $20,000 house.
It's nice that she's close to work.
And she's on a hill, and it's like the hill is literally crumbling. And I'm like, she didn't tell me she was a heroin addict, but
she didn't have to.
She didn't have to. Trust me, she didn't have to. But I'm thinking, well, I read on the Daily Mail all these people who are like, I just read it like 2 days ago. The police pulled over 2 girls who had passed out. They overdosed on heroin, and they were both like 20. And then they both had their daughters in the car seats in the back seat. So the 2 moms are passed out from heroin overdoses in the front, and 2 babies are crying in the back.
Where was this?
I think that one was West Virginia.
Yeah.
But again, it's not that far. And again, it's just depressing. And they're like, well, what do you do? Well, nobody wants to do anything because there's no cameras around. They're like and I'm not saying Donald Trump, but I'm saying the politicians of the world, there's nothing in it for them to fix the problem. Right? And it goes back to what I wrote on the front of the Beacon of Speech page, and I believe it more every day since I wrote it. All problems have solutions, Ted. Every problem. How much do solutions cost? Okay? And I think it was the 3rd episode we did, and me and you were real lighthearted. We were doing it in the break room, and we were telling jokes.
Those days are over.
Those days are gone. But I think it said for $8 trillion, we have the technology to build a Death Star.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right? It was something like 8 times...
I still don't understand it, but I remember it.
But it was like 8 times the budget of the whole world's economy. Right? Well, if we need a Death Star, we could build it. Right? But everybody in the world's going to starve in order for the scientists to make it.
What is a Death Star?
That's the fake moon that the Empire used to destroy the Rebel Alliance in Star Wars. But all it is a fake moon. Okay? So instead of the moon out in the sky, it is a mechanical moon. And inside there's a giant weapon that shoots a laser that can blow up a planet. That's the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Well, you can make a Death Star, but then everybody on Earth would die of starvation. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I just read something just today, and it said the leader of China is shutting down the Chinese internet because there's too much freedom on the Chinese internet. Okay, well, that doesn't sound like China at all, does it? That's why whenever me and you scream freedom of speech, China goes in cycles. And they said this guy wants to centralize his power. And I don't know how to pronounce it, but his name's pronounced with an XI. I think it's Z.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But whatever the hell you pronounce it, right? China's back to their old tricks, right? And again, I keep saying it, and people are probably
Well, they're still communist.
right. But people are going to think that I'm crazy. As soon as you get rid of guns in America, there's 1 billion Chinese and 400 million Americans. It doesn't take long before the Chinese are like, we need expansion. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But we shouldn't have to think that way. We should be like, how can the world community grow? Do you get the impression that since Obama, I shouldn't even say Obama, in the last 20 years, no matter who the president is, do you get the impression that people on Earth are growing closer or farther apart?
Farther apart.
And I agree. I think there's more wars, more everything, and I think there's more scrimmages. I mean, Ted.
I mean, to me, it's like, it wasn't necessarily because of 9/11, but 9/11 seemed to mark the time period where this country just started changing.
Yeah.
It's like everything became like dark
We were all on the same team after 9/11, and then about a year after that, they're like, whoa, no.
Yeah, it's like
left, right, left, right,
and
left,
like I
right.
said, I'm not necessarily saying it was because of 9/11. That
Right.
seemed to be a good marker.
Right.
So I don't think that brought it about.
Right. Well, let me give you an example. Spain, Catalonia is trying to break off from Spain. Right?
It's almost like
go ahead.
right around that time period, it's almost like this country started changing into like almost like a third world country.
Like a mentality.
Yeah.
I could see that. I don't know if I agree 100%, but I could see mentality changing, and not for the better. Not where like we're the global leader.
You know, where it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like lawlessness or, you know, just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like a dark cloud.
Well, that's how I feel. Like I said, I keep thinking that the jerks win, the scumbags win, and the good people lose. Now you'll be like, well, that's throughout human history. Well, no, the Constitution of America is supposed to have certain protections, right? But somehow certain people who have money have bought themselves out of protections. Just like the Harvey Weinstein thing. If me or you had done that in our jobs, we would be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't be able to buy ourselves out of it.
No.
But it seems like today there's more and more examples of people buying themselves out of
Mm-hmm.
problems. Now, if I was sitting here next to someone like Jello Biafra, he would say, well, that's why black people in America have a disadvantage, because they do pot and they get sent to jail.
Yeah.
And rich people's kids do pot and they get a $50 fine, or
Yeah.
they get a suspended sentence. And that's how things work in America. Now, you could...
Yeah, but could the difference be between selling pot and just you know what I mean? There's
Right.
a certain amount where they consider you a dealer.
Right. Oh yeah. I don't want to get down that path. I'm just saying that I keep reading stories about white privilege. Okay? And I'm like, well, I don't know about white privilege, because what I see in America is green privilege.
Yeah.
And I started to notice at the OJ
Yeah.
trial, because they said OJ, people hate OJ because he's black, but he got away with it. And I'm like, no, OJ is just like any other scumbag, like Harvey Weinstein or Woody Allen, who buys his way out
Yeah.
of problems.
See, and there you go. It's like when I said around the time of 9/11. As soon as I say that, I start thinking of things that happened before that. And I'm
Right.
like, well, no, it was even farther back than that.
Yeah. And that's why I'm like, no,
You know,
'cause-
OJ, which was
Right.
94, 95 or
Yeah.
whatever. So already you're 5 or 6 years before 9/11. And then I start thinking of Bill Clinton's,
yeah.
transgressions.
But that's the whole thing. And I'm sorry to go back to this girl at DQ, but she really affected me, okay? She really upset me. And I feel really bad because the food I had was excellent. I got, they had like a pretzel, like a soft pretzel with queso sauce, and it was excellent. And my wife, she got everything from Dairy Queen was excellent. Everything they made, everything was like gold. I mean, it was like a party in my palate, okay? But that girl haunted me so bad, okay? And people are like, white privilege, white privilege. I'm looking at this girl, and I'm like, this girl never had a shot. And like I said, long, greasy blonde hair, just vacant look in her eyes. She looked like she weighed maybe 110 pounds, about my height.
See, like when you first described her, for some reason, you know how you get a picture in your head. I was picturing her as a brunette, like.
Oh no,
I was picturing her as that girl from what was that movie, The Ring?
Yeah. But listen, her hair wasn't blonde like in Hollywood. It was blonde like she hadn't washed her hair in a week. And like that greasy blonde.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. And I wanted to drive her to the hospital and say, you can get help. And even when she handed me her, she's like, sir, here's your order. And she was like looking through me like I was a ghost. And I'm like, that girl never had a chance. Yeah. Okay? Because I look across the street, I see her $20,000 home, right? And I see the next one that's burned out. And I'm like, it don't matter if this girl's white or black. This girl's screwed. Mm-hmm. Okay? The heroin epidemic got her good. Okay? So that's why I don't believe in white privilege, because of things like I see in the East Liverpool.
She's white, and she obviously has no advantage.
But you could turn around and say, oh, that's the minority of white people. Well, if there's 200 million white people in America, and there's 50 million black people in America, there's a spectrum of people, rich people to poor people. Okay? If I think, how many people can you name who will make over $100 million in a year? Okay, just off the top of your head. I could probably name an equal amount of white people and black people because I follow, like, athletics. Mm-hmm. I don't really follow the business world that close. Okay? But again, that's why I reject that notion. People will be like, well, Fred Hunt, you're white. You don't know what you're talking about. You got a white beard. Okay? But in America, you can toss out the idea and you could talk about it, just like, and we're going to circle back around to Trump, can we build 10,000 nuclear weapons? Right? You have to be able to bounce stuff off. You have to be able to bounce ideas off and have the freedom to bounce. If you don't have the freedom to bounce off ideas and discard crazy ideas and find a great idea, you're screwed. You're living in China. Right? There's no free exchange of thought.
Yeah.
Ted, do you want me to go back to that Dairy Queen? We could set you up on a date with that girl. She wasn't bad looking, except for all the vacant looks and the and the skinniness.
How old was she?
She looked like she was about 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That old?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. She didn't look young, but she did a ton of heroin. So she could be like 22.
So do you think I could get her?
Oh yeah. Oh, Ted.
Is she in my league?
Ted, all you have to do is give her a $20 bill, and you probably could have hooked up with her and not had to date her. But anyhow, talking about Harvey Weinstein. No, I'm just teasing. The point is that Harvey Weinstein is sitting on a big fat pile of money. And he can do what he wanted to. Harvey Weinstein probably could have got 1,000 heroin addicts if he wanted, right? But there's no fun in that. Okay, he wanted the cream.
Now, how long has he been in the business?
He's been in the business since I think they said the company was founded in the 80s, But the 90s, the Weinstein Company, they said all of a sudden they went from nothing to something when Pulp Fiction came out.
Okay.
So that would be
So that was
94.
him?
Yeah. Well, him and his brother. And then his brother came out and said, I knew Harvey dated a lot of girls. I thought the girls...
What is it, Miramax?
Yeah. Miramax bought Weinstein, or Weinstein bought Miramax, or something like that. Some rigmarole in the thing.
So they're the ones who, what, produce movies?
Yeah.
Okay. So Miramax is kind of like Warner Brothers, or, you know, as far as...
Yeah.
Okay. And some of the movies that they've done is Pulp Fiction. What are some of the other ones? A lot of violent movies,
Yes.
right?
But I can't name them. I'd have to look at the thing. I'm sorry. I came semi-prepared.
But he's generally not making, you know, like family-friendly movies.
Oh, no. Mostly not. Most of his are artistic or cutting edge, right? I think they said he did a movie called Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah,
and I'm
okay,
like,
that was Gwyneth Paltrow. That
yeah.
was where she came into the...
Yeah, I'm
story.
not a big fan of some of those movies. But again...
Well, I've never seen that. I do know that didn't that win, like...
Yeah, I won a bunch of stuff. I'm not big into those. But because we got tied up shortly after 1 hour for this, because I got to do a shorter one today. But back to the theme of There Is No Hope. Me and you talked this week. I called you at home because I was upset. Playboy. They did an interview with John Lennon in 1979, right before he was shot. Is that correct?
80.
There's a 78.
80.
1980. And John Lennon, and this is why I told, right behind us, John Lennon is looking over our shoulder. He's like the patron saint of Beacon of Speech. Okay? He got shot by a deranged fan. One of his last interviews was with Playboy magazine. And the reason I told Ted is John Lennon had hope. Okay, he did that Playboy interview. And
yeah, he said, where there's life, there's hope.
Yep. He was about 40 years old, more or less, right? Maybe 35, 40. He was 40, and he said, I have hope for the future. And he said, any disagreements that I had with Paul, no matter what happens in the future, I know that Paul, I can see him making music for 40 more years. Any disagreements I have with George, I can see George making music for 40 more years. Any disagreements I have with Ringo, I can see him. We're musicians. We love music. And even if we can't get along creatively, we are all creative minds. John Lennon was prophetic 40 years later, because 40 years from 80s, 2020, that's in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Paul McCartney's still out doing music, right?
Yeah.
He's still playing concerts. He's still singing back in the USSR. He's still singing Jet. Okay, he's still out at the corner. You know, Paul McCartney is living the dream. Shortly after that interview, John Lennon was shot and killed. Right? So he was right, but like you said, where there's life, there's hope. Well, his hope ended in 1980. Right? And Yoko Ono keeps talking about, oh, the vision of John Lennon, the vision of John Lennon. You don't see people nowadays, artists, talking about the vision of John Lennon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, even if they agree with the vision of John Lennon, I kind of think, like me, part of the reason I like Slipknot is because Slipknot thinks that there is no hope. Okay? And the more and more, the older I get, the more I get that way about society. Okay? And that's why I'm a big, like I said, I'll be...
So you think where there's life, there is no hope.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah. Now there is no hope. Because the whole John Lennon thing was a real bummer. Because you read about it and you see what a great mind he was.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm not the biggest John Lennon fan when it comes to music. Okay? But he took artistic vision, and whether he was wrong or right, he still said, I still think there's going to be a place where there's no war. Well, you could tear down John Lennon and say, you know, well, he divorced his first wife.
Mm-hmm.
He's not any better than... He hooked up with all these groupies and stuff. He's not that great of a guy. Okay? Well, I don't get the impression that Harvey Weinstein is out there selling, sunshine and rainbows. He just wasn't. Okay? He's just a scumbag businessman. Okay? I'm trying to think of who the John Lennon of our generation, I shouldn't say our generation, this generation is. You know, peace and hope, peace and hope.
Well, that's a good question. Now, are you like narrowing it down to
Musicians.
musicians?
People like musicians, or people, you could say in the motion picture industry. Like I said, I don't see original ideas in the motion picture industry. I saw a couple of tiny little independent films because I was looking at independent films I wanted to watch. And
Well, you know who might come close as a musician is Bono.
yeah, but Bono's old.
Yeah.
I mean, young. What young people?
No, okay, young.
In their 20s or 30s are out there
Oh,
singing.
I mean, if there is somebody, I might not know who they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I just haven't kept up with.
You know, when I think of people in their 20s and 30s, I think of materialism and rappers and Taylor Swift songs, My Ex-Boyfriend Did Me Wrong, and I Am Stronger Than, what he can do, which is a decent message. I just don't see a John Lennon overarching, theme from that. But you can say Bono. I'm not the biggest Bono fan either. Okay, I think some of his stuff is some phony baloney.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but again, Bono's old.
Yeah.
Okay? When's the last time they released an album that was when I first got iTunes, it must have been about 8 or 10 years ago, they had a free U2 album. And iTunes said, we want everybody to have this album. And they gave the whole world the album for free. And I listened to it, and it was pure garbage. And I had to look up how to delete music off of iTunes. Okay? And why would you delete free music for, right? Well, on iTunes, I only had music that I had bought, okay, or illegally downloaded, okay, but mostly what I bought. So the only garbage I had on the whole thing was the U2 album. I didn't know how to delete it. And iTunes came out and they're like, we gave you a free U2 album. I'm like, I don't want a free U2 album. I think they suck.
Before I forget, did you ever look up that song King of Hollywood?
Yes, I did.
Was I close on that?
You'll get a kick out of this. I looked up King of Hollywood and it said song with lyrics, right? And what had happened is I went on YouTube because I wasn't going to pay for it, right? And it said song with lyrics, and then they started playing the song, and it was a guy doing karaoke. And he was doing it horribly. And I'm like, no. King of Hollywood by the Eagles. And nothing came up. King of Hollywood by the Eagles, King of Hollywood. I tried to do it on YouTube so I could see what was going on, right? Nothing worked. Here what happened, it's like Led Zeppelin. You know how Led Zeppelin didn't want any of their music downloaded?
Yeah.
The Eagles, every time they put something on YouTube, they file a claim against YouTube for illegal use. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I never heard it. I still made it the song of the day on our thing, but we don't play the audio. We just, write it down.
Mm-hmm.
So I checked it out, and I could not find it because everywhere I went, it said taken down copyright infringement. So the Eagles are all over YouTube saying, we don't want you listening to our stuff unless you buy it. Which, does that sound like the Eagles, Ted?
Yeah.
Which, going back to, the whole Eagles philosophy, they didn't do anything unless they got paid for it. And at the Rock Hall, they said, well, who's the guy it was their asshole, was their manager?
Oh, yeah.
Every band needs an asshole, and he was our asshole. It was Bernie something.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders is
I can't
selling
think of his
Fayco.
name. Oh, Irving Azoff, wasn't it?
It could be. You're more of the fan of them.
Does that sound right? Irving Azoff?
I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up for the Eagles. But, so you don't get to pick the song of the day, okay? I picked the song of the day. And I'm picking something by Slipknot because I'm a mean host. I'm going to make you listen to Slipknot next time you're at my house, okay?